Like it's tradition in my main channel on the Spanish one, in the beginning of the year, in January, every year I do a video guide for beginners, where I try to explain more or less what is the game about, what kind of things you have to focus on, and the state of the game. Last year I was a bit too lazy and I didn't make it, and the previous one is from 2023, and now being 2025 I think that the game has changed a lot. There's so many new things, there's new promotion, new promo codes, beginners promo codes, free champions, new dungeon, new bosses, and I think this video was necessary, at least an update of it, and this is the one. So let's have a look at it. Hi, Senda here and welcome to another Raid Shadow Legends video. In this case, like I was mentioning this is the Beginner's Guide 2025, at least my opinion, my perspective, and if you don't know me, I've been playing this game pretty much since the beginning. I've been making videos, at least in Spanish, in the Spanish community, for over 6 years, and I've uploaded more than 500 videos. So I have quite a lot of experience in the game. I've seen a lot of different champions, different setups, and a lot of the company. And I know, as a tier 3 content creator, I know and I have a lot of inside information, access to test server, etc. So I think I'm pretty qualified in that sense to make a video, to make a guide for new people, for new players, to understand this game as much as possible, and at least to try to help you to get a better account as fast as possible. The first point I want to talk about are resources. And by resources, I mean everything outside of the game that can make your account better. The first one is promo codes. Normally, Plarium or the company doesn't always publicly publishes a promo code, but in this channel I'm going to make videos for every single promo code so you don't miss any. Also, this is going to be a bit of a tricky one, but a couple of years ago I made my own website. This website is even older than Hell Hades' Hell Hades' website. The only thing is that it's in Spanish, but nowadays it's as easy as you click here, translate to English, and you can see the whole website in English. It says Raid Shadow Legends Campfire because back in the time, instead of the Forge, we used to have a place called a campfire, which was not too much use. But the idea of this website is to do champion guides, video guides, talking basically about all the content in the game in the most updated and in detail information. For example, in terms of Alice, I don't only tell you about what is this champion about or what is this champion able to do, but also I show you gear, I show you masteries, as an example with like all the description as much as possible. So I think it's a pretty good place in that sense to help you improve and get better and know better your champion. There's a lot of other websites, like I said, Hell Hades also has one. Hell Hades has a team of people actually dedicated, and this website is only on my own. So I'm trying the best I can. You can always double check both, and there's gonna be good information in both. But in this case, one of the most popular pages is the promotional codes, okay? The promo codes, because it's something fairly new in the game, and all the promo codes we have are good for all sorts of accounts. There's promo codes for all accounts, there's promo codes specific for new accounts. Normally the new accounts one, you can only put them in the game during the first 3 days of game. So if you haven't put any code and you've been playing for 3, 4, 5 days, I recommend you to kind of start a new account after watching this video so you know which beginner champion to pick up and also what is the best promo code you can enter. Right now is probably this one, Monkey King, basically because you're gonna get Sun Wukong, which is a very powerful champion. There's others, for example this Mordecai, I know there was a couple more for the champions, but 100% Monkey King is the best. And be careful with this one because like I mentioned here, you can only put one, so choose wisely. I was gonna also suggest and recommend to join my Discord community down there in the comments, but right now at the moment of filming this video, it's only full in Spanish because that's the content I've been doing for the last 6.5 years, only mainly in Spanish. So maybe in the future, just let me know in the comments, I might make a section for English, exactly the same as in Spanish, but just for English speaking community. So that said, let's jump on the game and let's see the beginner's guide inside the game. First of all, you probably passed already tutorial, you picked up your first champion, have you made a good choice or not, which one is the best of the four, and the general consensus, the general idea is out of the Aethel, Galek, Elaine and Kale, the best one is, like I said, by general consensus, Kale. Why? Because he's able to apply poisons, and poisons is going to be a very important thing for early and mid game for some of the most important dungeons, like the clan boss, the dragon, the ice golem, and several dungeons in the early game, just like I said, because he's the only one able to place them. Other resources in the game that can be important to mention, one is the energy. If you have below 130, you're going to be regenerating them slowly, so it's kind of a limit on that the game puts on you in terms of now it's time to close the game, go outside, do things in your real life while this energy regenerates. If you're a bit more end game account, which you're probably not even seeing this video because you don't need it, you can always pile up a lot of energy and prepare for fusions. Fusions are a bit more of a tricky thing because you need to prepare, you need to have played in the game for a while, you need to be able to save up enough shards, save up energy, save up silver, maybe even save up gems so you can transform them into energy or whatever you might need, or shards or anything. But energy is basically the main resource that you can use it in order to increase the experience of your champions or farm gear. Then you have the silver, basically you get silver by running dungeons or selling gear, and the gems. And talking about the gems, there's kind of two branches, two main ideas of where is the best way of using your first bunch of gems. There's two, I wouldn't say there's one better than the other. One of them is use them to unlock the masteries of your main champion. That, for example, could be Kale, and to unlock the masteries. To unlock the masteries, basically because you're going to use Kale for the next coming months, and because it's a pretty good champion in that sense. So you would come to the masteries of the champion, you click on the mastery, and it will give you an option of pay 800 gems and just unlock them all. It's not bad if you do that. I'm just saying it's a pretty common way of doing it, at least for the very first champion. So at least you have one fully unlocked, and then you can continue with a lot of parts of the game. The other option is unlock the gem mine, and this is probably something that you're gonna have to do eventually anyways. There's 3 levels, and you're gonna need 500 gems for each level. I'm not sure if it's 3 months or 6 months, but basically you're going to be able to, daily, you can generate gems, you come here, click on them, and they go to your account. You're going to be able to earn back all the gems you put here to increase the level of your gem mine up to level 3. So it's also not a bad option. You can always farm the masteries of your champion using the silver. You're going to have a lot of silver in the beginning. Having spoken about the resources of the game, I've kind of not forgot, but it's very directly linked to this one, and it's like, what is the purpose of the game? The purpose of the game, I would say, is to be able to beat the whole content. You could also argue that the content of the game, that the end goal of the game is to get all the champions, to kind of fill your Pokédex of Pokemon, that's if you're gonna call it like that. But in the game is basically be able to beat the whole game. In the game you can see there's 288 champions here, 223, let's say 500 and 250 and 150, 900, let's say around 1,000 champions. Probably it will reach 1,000 champions at some point. But basically every champion, you can think about him like a different card or a different, gear. And the whole idea is to make a deck of different cards where you're able to beat the whole content. Not all champions, not all cards are good for everything. Some champions are specific for certain dungeons, some other champions are specific for more dungeons, but they're trash in one of them, and then some champion is really amazing in one place but really bad in the rest of the places. So it's going to depend a lot the way of understanding the champions. Like I said, there's so many champions and they're all very different. Speaking about champions, we can kind of divide them in 4 different categories, okay? The common and the uncommon, probably with 99.9% of certainty, they're useless champions. I think there would be one arguable example of a champion, which would be in the Sacred Order, which is Armiger. He's a bit particular because he hits by enemy max HP. It's not the best champion, but it can help in certain scenarios. If you see very old videos from, like I said, 5 years ago, 6 years ago, people were recommending leveling up champions like shield guard, people were recommending leveling up champions like Soros. Nowadays, there's no need. These videos are very outdated. There's no point leveling up these champions because nowadays there's so many other better champions and more worth investing resources in that there's no point leveling up these uncommon champions. Same with the commons, they're very, very useless. And you will realize pretty soon, in a couple of months of playing, that also the rare champions, they're all pretty much quite bad and very not used. The game evolves and goes around basically three types of champions: the epics, the legendaries, and the mythical. The mythical are probably the best, but also the hardest to get. And the epics, there's some really good epics, some really bad epics. Normally the main core of the game are going to be legendary champions. One, because there's a lot of them, and second, because they're a good balance between usability and how hard to get them. You can get them in shards. There is, like I said, all sorts of types. The regular champions, there's Unity faction. I'm not going to go into too much depth in this topic because I could make a video that lasts 3 hours talking about just champions and roles and gears and so on. But just so you have an overall idea, don't get too excited if you pull, I don't know, an epic or rare. Probably the rare, you're never going to use him again, or you're going to use it in just for a couple of months. With the epics, a bit so-so, because there's epics that are really bad, epics that are better than legendaries, legendaries that are worse than even rares. So it depends a bit. Every champion, like I said, is a very unique, specific card and has very unique and specific uses. Probably at some point I will make a video specifically in English talking about the roles of the champions, because it's really important to understand what is a champion for, what would you use it, how would you gear him, as well as the different roles and types of champions. There's buffers, there's debuffers, there's revivers, there's nukers, there's so many different types of champions, and all of them follow more or less similar patterns in terms of gear. That could probably be full-on dedicated video. That brings me to the next point on this beginner's guide, and is the early game, the mid game, and the late game. A lot of things in the game are kind of differentiated by these three big sections. For example, we're gonna have through all the kind of dungeons and game modes there is, the campaign is going to be pretty much the same. It's going to be the main place where you're going to be farming in order to level up your champions and to get enough experience. Then you're going to have the dungeons. The dungeons is something between everything, to be honest, because for example the keeps, the places where you're gonna get the different potions to level up your champions, this is a bit all around the game. Like you're gonna be doing this in early and you're gonna be doing this in late game. But for example, the rest of the dungeons, you have this gear here that it depends on the dungeon, is considered more useless or less useful. For example, the life artifacts, the offense artifacts, the defense artifacts, critical rate, probably resistance, retaliation are sets that in the early game you can use them, but they're considered early game set. There's some exceptions, for example the reflex, the curse, the provoke. They're sets that can be pretty good and can be pretty useful also in the mid and late game, but at least these very first ones, they're considered early game sets. And in the late game, personally, I tend to sell them and not keep any of these sets because they're more useless. In this case, in the Dragon's Lair, pretty much the same. Doesn't matter the difficulty, the sets are the same. And probably except speed, that is also kind of useful in late game. Some champions with Stalwart, but Daze, Frost, Destroy, Accuracy, depending. In late game, they're considered really bad sets. No one uses them, or at least in very specific scenarios, and the dragon wouldn't be a place to farm the gear. Same with the Fire Knight's Castle. The only 2 or 3 sets that I can think of is regeneration in very specific champions. Stand can be pretty good in Faction Wars or Cursed City, and Savage is a good set for nukers, but again is kind of now considered an early game set. You'll have a better set, which would be the one you would get in the Doom Tower. There's an advanced set, which it's the Astronix, the Dark Fae. It's not in this rotation, but it's a champion. It's a boss that's going to give us some items that we can forge, and then we're going to forge into this set. That this will be considered kind of the mid to late game version of the Savage set, and also there will be a 9-piece set that will be considered the late game set. So pretty much all game modes have all three differentiations. You have the normal mode, the easy mode, sorry, which will be this one. You will have the hard mode, and even farming it in the hard mode, it gets to a point that even if I farm Ice Golem, I don't need the set. Like I said, this is as the game is right now. Maybe they change something, they include new sets, they rebalance some of these sets, and these sets are part of the new meta and they become really powerful, but as the game stands right now, they're not really useful. And then you have more end game, late game focused dungeons, like could be Sand Devil's Necropolis. It's pretty hard, especially if you want to beat it at a very fast time. In these kind of times you need specific champions, specific setups. Similar happens to Shogun's Grove. You can start in the early levels, but you're soon going to encounter that it's quite hard, that you don't know the mechanics, that you're missing champions. And the same, you're going to come to a point that you need certain champions and you cannot just go further. That doesn't mean that it's a dungeon that is more complicated for the level of your account. You need to keep playing more, keep unlocking more champions, leveling them up, putting them books, and at some point you'll be able to beat them once you understand what's the strategy to beat the boss, and if you have champions that you can build a strategy around them. And also a bit similar happens with the spider. Okay, the spider it's also a hard-ish boss. Nowadays it's kind of one of the easiest, just because you can use HP burn on this side, on this mode. You can use Hex and then a lot of AoE deep damage to just kill all the little spiderlings. And also the jewelry that drops from here is not very good. I mean, compared to the ones that are part of a gear, like the Hydra or other types of sets, these ones tend to be a bit behind. Something a bit similar happens with the rest of the game mode. Faction Wars, you can start it, but of course you're gonna need to have been played the game for a couple of months to earn at least 5 champions from each faction. Then these champions, ideally, they have to be pretty good champions. You need to level up to level 50, 60, good gear with books, etc. So it's going to take some time. Arena, super important, just because it's going to give you a lot of bonuses. Same, it's very important that you do Arena because it's going to be able to give you this kind of things to improve the different area bonuses. And these area bonuses and these champion bonuses here on the right, they're going to apply to all the game modes all around the game. So it's very important to boost the champions, or at least your champion's stats, just by doing Arena. The most important, that's an easy recommendation here. First, level up your accuracies, then the critical damage, and then you can jump onto a bit of here and there attack, defense, HP, depending on the champions you have or the factions that you want to empower. The area bonuses, this is a bit more like live arena focused. It's not my main strength. I really don't like live arena, but also I would say probably since Hydra is such a relevant game mode in the future, you'd probably want to invest in Hydra battles, speed, ignore defense, then critical damage, and then probably a bit of everything else. And the rest of the game modes, clan boss, I'll have another dedicated section in this video talking about the different clan bosses. Doom Tower, again, easy mode, hard mode, depending on the level of your account. And the Cursed City is kind of a bit more of an end game kind of dungeon. You can do it on the normal mode. Is pretty easy, at least for my account. It's more like a mid-game focused. The hard one is pretty hard just because some of the levels you have very tough restrictions in terms of the champions you can use. Same with the boss, it's a pretty nasty boss. It tends to do a lot of random things. You need very specific champions with very specific debuffs. Even in the late game, in some accounts, it can be quite tedious to deal with. For me, it's not the case. I already beaten the whole Cursed City, not in this rotation, but I already got the champion, the maximum reward here. But like I said, it's quite tricky. Okay, there's certain dungeons, certain bosses, combinations. In some of them, you have to fight 2 bosses at the same time. And like I said, you need a quite big pool of champions to be able to pick the best for the best plays. And also linked with the difficulty of the different dungeons, we have the clan bosses, okay? The different clan bosses. This is very important that you join a clan from day one and you find a clan that is able to take down the Demon Lord according to your level. It makes no sense if you are only able to make enough damage, let's say 1.15 million damage to take down the first boss, and you want to join a clan where they're able to take down Ultra Nightmare. It wouldn't make any sense, because what you want is that the clan is able to kill the boss that you're interested in and you're able to get the double chest from the rewards, okay? Basically because the Demon Lord is going to be the main source of books and shards, and shards is going to be the main way to earn champions, and you want the more amount of champions the better, because you're going to be able to have more cards to be able to beat more game modes. So the Demon Lord is probably one of your main focus. You can investigate about different setups, different best champions, damage dealers, how to gear them. There's plenty of information and videos online, and it can 100% help you to improve your account, to start focusing into making a pretty good, solid Demon Lord team. Hydra is a bit similar, it's also a bit on these lines. The thing with Hydra is that it's important that you do it always, every day. The normal Hydra, you need at least the minimum, at least 2.2 million damage, because even just this small one, you can see it here because I already have the champion, but it's going to give you fragments, champion fragments, for one very powerful champion called Mithrala, that is going to help you in a lot of game modes. It's a free champion, there's a lot of very powerful free champions, but in the case of the Hydra, you only need to do Hydra every day. You have 3 keys every week. Not every day, every week you have 3 keys, and you have to do them. So Mithrala is the reward for free. Just by doing Hydra, slowly but surely you're gonna get all the enough fragments to summon her. Similar thing happens with Lydia. You also have to be completing all the faction wars, and she's the final reward. V6 is a champion that you're gonna get for free just for logging in, and also you have a lot of different champions. For example, if you manage to get good damage and slowly, exactly like Mithrala, you're gonna get different fragments to be able to summon Embrace the Anomaly, another of the newest champions. Same with the Cursed City, you're going to be able to summon Carnage, also a very, really good champion. So there's a lot of really good champions that you're going to get for free. The only thing you need to do is continue playing every day. This game is not sprint, this game is a marathon, and you're going to be earning different things slowly. The last thing I'll mention, or I'll cover at least briefly in this game, is in terms of gear, okay? Basically because I keep getting over and over questions of people that are stuck in certain quests, and I think it's the progress missions, but I'm not sure if it's also in different quests, that basically it involves stats, substats, and sets. And this is very important, and like I said, I don't want to go too much into detail because I could do a video of 2 hours just talking about this because there's so much information. But basically you could divide the champion gear in kind of 3 different rows. You have the upper row, the middle row, and the lower row. The upper row, you have, if you look on the here top left, you have the main stat, which in this case is flat attack, and then these are the substats. If you click on upgrade and then you click on this eye here, you're going to be able to see the primary stat and the substat of every single. This, what it shows is that weapons, the only primary stat it can has, all the weapons in the game are going to be attack flat. Helmet, HP flat, shield, defense flat. But gauntlets, chest plates, and boots, they work a bit differently. Substats, the same. Not all the items are gonna have the same substats. And this Ascension bonus is a bit more advanced kind of content, and it requires doing the Iron Twins Fortress and getting different items, so it gets a bit more complicated for a beginner's guide. But basically it's also certain stats that you can only get in certain thing. What I want to show you with this, or what I want to explain you with this, is that there's 3 types of items that you can get, and that you need to be able to select or to sell or to use for you to know that if this item is good. I know it might sound a bit complicated, a bit complex what I'm saying, but hear me out. This is always going to be, all weapons are attack flat, all helmets are HP flat, all shields are defense flat. But for example, on gloves, like I mentioned, it can be defense percentage, like this one, it can be defense flat, it can be critical chance, it can be critical damage. Depending on the champion you want to use, you're going to use one or the other, but there is certain ones that they're instant sell. Gloves, chest plate, and boots, if they are flat HP, flat defense, or flat attack, you can sell them, pretty much, because they're useless, and you always want to look for some percentage. Percentage is always much better than flat. In terms of the chest, is the same. Percentage always better. Everything that is attack, defense, or HP, if it's flat, you can also bin it. But accuracy or resistance, they're a bit more niche case scenarios. So for some champions they're going to be really good, for other champions they're going to be very useless. And with the boots is the only piece of armor that can be speed. And for majority of the early and mid game, the most recommended is that you always choose speed boots. Basically because the speed is what's going to make your champions have more turns, and obviously the more turns, the more hits, the more damage, etc. If you're very slow, the enemy is going to hit you more times than you hit him, and probably you're going to be dying more. So you want to find a good balance of being enough fast, and probably there's no champion that you would say is always too fast. There's always room for improvement, and there's always improvement in your setups if they're faster. In terms of the jewelry, like I mentioned, there's different types of jewelry. You have the early game, which are the ones that you get in the regular spider, but also you have the kind of the advanced, to say, the mid and late game, more late game, and that's what also a bit linked to what I was talking about before, the sets. You have the 2-piece sets, like for example this defense, this speed, critical rate, the regular accuracy, that are just very basic sets. The early game sets. The mid game sets, for example, you could find them in the Forge. They're kind of a level up. For example, in Dragon you can farm the accuracy gear, but in the Forge you can craft the perception, which is already step up. It's already an improvement that not only gives you 40 accuracy but also gives you speed. This would be kind of the mid game type of gear. The late game type of gear, part of this set will be a set that will give you even more accuracy or even more speed. And here we're already talking about, and let's see if I have a champion with any of these sets. For example, let me think. I think Venus, but I don't know where she is. Here she is, for example. And the late game way of building champions will be with the 6 pieces or 9 pieces. For example, Hydra drops certain set that can be 9 pieces, and being able not only to have the 9 pieces, but also to have them with the right substats is, like I mentioned, is a long time job. It's a marathon, and you need to be doing week by week, month by month, and earning different sets and rolling them and being lucky until you get exactly the stats you want. Once you manage to gear a champion with all 9 pieces of certain set and also the stats are good, means this is a advanced kind of set and also a very good. With this I was talking about the jewelry, but the thing with the jewelry is that there's 2 bits of jewelry. You have spider jewelry, like I said, is great in the early and mid game, but towards the end game we're going to be looking for jewelry that not only has good stats and substats, but that they also, if you only have 1 piece, this single ring is going to give me whatever it says here, plus 40 accuracy. 40 accuracy is a lot of accuracy, especially only for 1 piece of gear. These ones don't give you anything, just what you see here, and that's it. That's why I mean, like, in the late game, you always want to gear your champions with jewelry from sets, for example Feral, for example Slayer, for example Pinpoint, Reaction, Stone Skin, Blood Shield, all these jewelry that not only going to give you a stat, but it's also going to give you an extra bonus or an extra effect. And finally, and with this I'll end, you can see in my account a lot of champions. You can see some mythical, a lot of legendaries, a lot of epics, a lot of rares, and is the concept of free-to-play, pay-to-win, and pay-to-fast. Think that, yes, I do have a lot of champions. Am I a free-to-play account? No, I put in some money, but not that much money like other content creators or other accounts. But the difference is that I've been playing consistently for more than 6 years. That means a lot of clan boss, a lot of shards, a lot of events, a lot of ×2, ×15, a lot of fusions, a lot of free champions. So it's 6 months of collecting champions. Of course I'm gonna have a lot of champions. But even though people that put in money in the game, that doesn't mean they're gonna have an amazing account full of legendaries. Because basically you can put in money, you can buy, I don't know, this pack and spend $60 into 3 sacred shards. And yes, maybe you put champion, great. Maybe this champion is good, then perfect. But maybe you pull a shitty champion, then you're just kind of putting in the bin $60. Or you can buy this, spend $60, open 3 shards, and you don't get anything. You get 3 shitty epics, which means like putting more money doesn't warranty you're gonna have a better account, you're gonna be better than everyone else. Just means that you're gonna have more chances to get certain champions. I've seen accounts that have been playing for a week, 2 weeks with a mythical, with a top tier void legendary. So it depends a lot on the account. That's why this game, is it pay to win? Well, yeah, it depends, kind of. I mean, the whole point of all companies is to make money. The game itself is free and you can play an amazing account for free, but you don't need to spend money on it. You need to put hours and do your hours and spend the hours in the game in the best way possible to maximize your account, but you don't need to. I would say it's a bit more considered pay to fast. For example, here, yeah, you can pay 60 bucks, but 1,000 energy is gonna go a long way. That means more farming in dungeons. That means better chances of getting good gear. It means with, I don't know, silver not so much, but you can also purchase, I don't know, silver or books, and these books means better champions. So in this sense, it's more pay to fast. The more money, especially depending on what you pay or depending on what you buy, is going to help you have a better account faster, especially if you buy good resources. But like I said, and there's also content creators who do a really good job, and they're completely free to play, and you don't need to spend money on the game. It's going to make your life easier, it's going to make your progress faster, but there's no need. That said, I hope you find this video more or less helpful, that you found some of the information I said. Maybe you knew about it, maybe you didn't know about it. If there's anything that you would like me to cover a bit more in depth in a video specific for that topic, you can leave it down in the comments. I hope, like I said, that you enjoyed the video, you found it useful. I'll leave down there, as always, a recommended video, and we'll see you in the next Race Shadow Legends video. Bye bye.